Kali, the Hindu goddess of ultimate power, time, destruction and change in Shaktism, a sect of Hindu thought that states that divinity is of a distinctly female aspect, which bears resemblance with the Canaanite and mystery religion veneration of the mountain mother or mother goddess figure that is called forth within these sacrificial rites. Though it is deeply fascinating, the metaphysics that are being discussed through the symbolism of Kali, the metaphor of her, we shall nonetheless be going around that topic for this discussion. We see the description of Kali as thus, quote, "In both she is described as being black in colour, meaning her skin is black. Her eyes are described as red, and intoxication and rage. Her hair is dishevelled, small fangs sometimes protrude out of her mouth, and her tongue is lolling. Sometimes she dons a skirt made of human arms, and a garland of human heads, or earrings made of human fetuses," unquote. Indeed, we also see that Kali's most common four-armed iconographic image shows each hand carrying, variously, a kajya, a crescent-shaped sword or a giant sickle. Again, that links with the Hyksos, we're going to get into that. A trishul, trident, again the shin. 2 Kings 21:7, the name of the Lord. A severed head and a bowl or skull cup, a kapala, collecting the blood of the severed heads. Wow. So again, the same chalice that's used within these sacrifices, it's the same deity that we're seeing here, it's the same sacrificial rites. The Hyksos were the ones to introduce the kopesh, or the sickle sword to Kemet, which sounds very similar to the Sanskrit kajya, right, or kadga. Furthermore as well, obviously the Hyksos were Semites, but the sickle is a symbol of the harvest and the detaching of the stalk or grain from the earth, which implies mass sacrifice, right? A separation of the wheat from the chaff. Interestingly, this is what we see implied or blatantly stated with the Old Testament and New Testament instances of this imagery. So Joel 3:13, quote, "Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, trample the grapes, for the winepress is full, and the vats overflow. So great is their wickedness," unquote, implying the idolatrous nations. Revelation 14 verse 15, quote, "Another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, 'Trust in thy sickle and reap, for the time has come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe,' unquote." The trident, obviously, or the trishul in this case, is the shin letter, which can be described as a composite bow, an image of destruction and pestilence within pan-Canaanite theological symbolism rather, flame or teeth. However, in general, it means destruction or to devour. And thus, it is the name of the Lord as per 2 Kings 21:7. Quote, "He took the carved Asherah pole he had made and put it in the temple, of which the Lord had said to David and to his son Solomon, 'In this temple and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever.'" Very interesting as well that we see the carved Asherah pole actually be brought into the temple. Interestingly, this is the exact same shape, the shin letter, we find at Dealey Plaza, the site of the JFK assassination. No coincidence there, of course. Indeed, at the centre of Atlantis was Poseidon's temple, according to Plato's account, to which Poseidon translates as the Lord of the Earth, and is thus a Hellenic equivalent of Yahweh, or the Spirit of Destruction, I suspect. Yahweh was also referred to as Melech Eretz, or Eretz, King of the Earth, and is hoped to establish a new world order. In Zechariah 14 verse 9 we read, quote, "The Lord, or Yahweh, will be king over the whole earth. On that day there will be one Lord, and his name the only name, unquote. Again, this is after he deposes God. Moreover, Poseidon carried the trident, and Yahweh's name was the Shin letter, trident-shaped letter, to which we see his followers incessantly making such a shape, with hand signs in both photographic and artistic portraits. Lord Shiva also carried a trident too. Hinduism and Kali worship were also deeply associated with child sacrifice and human sacrifice in general, just like Yahweh. Quote, the sacrificer will sacrifice a man first, for man is the first of all animals. Thus he slaughters the victim according to its form and according to its excellence. Shatapata Veda. It seems Kali is linked to the Amorite goddess Anat or Ashratum as well, or again Ashtart, Astarte, Asherah, Ishtar, Inanna, Isis, Yoshtra, Ustaroth, Tesh, Ashtaroth. I mean, the list is endless. Kodesh. God, there's literally hundreds of these names. Sibyl, Kibele, another one. Magna Mater. Anyway, there's hundreds of these epithets. Again, it's all alluding to the same spirit, if you will. It is said of this, quote, the Bronze Age epic cycles of the Levantine city of Ugarit include a myth according to which the warrior goddess Anatu or Anat, Asherah or Ashtaroth, started attacking warriors with the text of the myth describing the goddess as gloating and her heart filling with joy and her liver with laughter, while attaching the heads of warriors to her back and girding hands to her waist until she is pacified by a message of peace sent by her brother and consort, the god Baal. So, what you're seeing here, astoundingly, is in essence Kali is Asherah, is Ashtart, is Anat. They're all the same deity. They even have the same stories. Of course, Kali is said to have done the same thing. She was possessed by the joy of battle, and she just continued to kill until she was subdued by Lord Shiva. Again, it's the same thing. It's absolutely the same thing as Anat and Ashtaroth and this Ugarites or Amorites, and Phoenician and Canaanites, and of course by extension Semitic and Hebraic tradition. These deities both were said to dwell on a mountain, just like Yahweh, both Anat or Ashtaroth or Asherah, and of course Kali as well. Of course, Deuteronomy 33:2 is that confirms really that Yahweh derived, he was a mountain god. Digressing, the Son of Man's appearance is described exactly the same as Kali's. In Revelation 19, verse 12 to 15, we find it stated, quote, his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself, and he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God, and out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. Again, New World Order. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. Revelation 1:13, quote, in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Again, think of the fiery red stripe that went around the eyes of Yachtl. We're going to get into that actually. I haven't described that yet. And obviously in contrast to his black body. And obviously as well, Yachtl also had on one of his feet, he had an obsidian mirror, right, that gleamed. Furthermore as well, Kali is said to have black skin and fiery red eyes too. Totally the same. And then we get on to this. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. akin to the look of obsidian or black, jet blackness, and his voice is the sound of many waters, potentially an allusion to the abyss, right? Obviously, you have the upper waters, right? And you have the waters of the deep. In general, it's the fresh waters and the salt water. The salt water mixing with the fresh water to create the world, if you will, to create land. Again, the salt water was something of the chthonic or subterranean realms, the underworld, and the fresh water was obviously of the land and of the firmament or heaven, which is the ceiling, right, of the world. But yes, so as you see there, a feet like unto fine brass, as if they had burned in a furnace. Exactly the same as Yotl. Yotl had, on one of his feet, had an obsidian mirror, right? Very peculiar. It's the same spirit, it's the same deity. I may include in this, just checking now. Yes, I do include Ezekiel's vision, right? This will blow your mind, because it's the same sort of imagery that we see concurrent between all of these various Yahweh-like deities such as Kali and Yahweh. So, continuing on, of Yahweh, though he is rarely described physically, we see in Psalm 18 verses 7 to 15 that it provides an appearance into the theme of destruction. Again, I think this is written by David, if I recall correctly. Quote, or it's attributed to him at least. Quote, "Then the earth shook and quaked, even the foundations of the mountains trembled. They shook violently because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils," this is Yahweh, "and a raging fire came out of his mouth. Glowing coals flared up from it. He spread apart the heavens and cast down with a dark cloud under his feet. He rode on one of the angels as he flew," or in some translations it's the cherubim, "and he soared on the wings of the wind. He made the darkness his hiding place, dark rain clouds his covering," or just dark clouds his canopy. "Out of the brightness in front of him, those rain clouds passed by with hailstones and lightning. Yahweh thundered in the heavens. Elyon made his voice heard with hailstones and lightning. He shot his," and again Elyon, very close to that the word for terebinth, which itself links to Asherah, right? So we see Yahweh and Elyon, which potentially could be Yahweh and Asherah, the mother goddess figure. "He shot his arrows and scattered them." Of course, as well, sorry for interrupting again, Elyon, or El Elyon, the Most High God. And we see in Deuteronomy 32 verses 8 to 9, if I recall, yes, verses 8 to 9, we see that Elyon, or El Elyon, the Most High God, actually gave Yahweh his inheritance of Israel, of the seed of Jacob. Of course, in the Zohar, and even in the Old Testament, he seemed to have underhandedly expanded his divine inheritance to encompass the entire world. He shot his arrows and scattered them, scattered David's enemies for him. He flashed streaks of lightning and threw them into confusion. Again, a god of calamity, right? The term Ovah within Hebrew, archaically, very archaically, ancient Hebrew, could mean calamity, right? So you have Yahweh, right? Or Yahovah, literally could be, say, a lord of calamity, or a lord, or a god of calamity, a god of confusion. Then the ocean floor could be seen, right? The deep, the abyss could be seen, brings up the abyss, the primordial waters of nothingness, right? Foundations of the earth were laid bare, destroys everything. We get back to, this void state, this abyss, just like Kali, what Kali did, destroyed everything, brought it back to that state of formlessness. At your stern warning, O Yahweh, at the blast of breath from your nostrils, unquote. So, just to be clear, that is the deity that the majority of the world either revere or are worshipping as we speak right now, and of course are bringing into being his New World Order, either wittingly or unwittingly. 1 Kings 8:12. Then Solomon declared, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in the thick darkness." Exodus 28 verses 21, quote, "And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was." Deuteronomy 4 verse 11. "These words the Lord spake," or spoke, "unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire of the cloud and of the thick darkness, with a great voice, and he added no more, and he wrote them in 2 tables of stone, and delivered them unto me." Unquote. Psalm 18 verse 11, quote, "He made darkness his secret place, his pavilion around about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies." Unquote. So continuing on, the descriptions of Yahweh in Kali are also consistent with the descriptions of Yaotl, or Tetzcatlipoca, of whose name means Lord of Smoke and Mirror, or the Lord of the Black Mirror, or the Lord of the Mirror's Smoke. Again, a scrying mirror, as we would call it. That's also how he was convened with by the Aztec priests. He would literally use a scrying mirror. Tetzcatlipoca was typically depicted as a jet black god, with a ribbon of fiery red around the level of his eyes, just like Yahweh and Kali, and also Christ. This is how the young man sacrificed during Toxcatl. The imitation of the king or god ceremony was painted. He also had an obsidian mirror upon his foot, it is said, and as I have mentioned. Ezekiel 1 verses 26 to 27, quote, "Above the large covering that was over their heads, there was something that looked like a throne, and looked like it was made of sapphire. Sitting on the throne was what looked like a man. Then I saw that there was something like shining brass from the centre of his body and up to his head. It looked like fire all around within it, and from the centre of his body and down to his feet I saw something like fire." Unquote. Carol Tauber and Mary Miller, specialists in Mesoamerican studies, write that, quote, "More than anything, Tetzcatlipoca appears to be the embodiment of change through conflict, or order ab chao." Again, Yahweh, the god of calamity, right? Masonry, by the way, is totally linked to Kabbalah. Kabbalah's merely an exegesis of the Old Testament. So as you see there, the Shin hand sign, as I discussed within my video Sunset Nations that you can catch on my alternative channels, which are on alternative platforms rather. Yaotl or Tetzcatlipoca was described as the giver of life, and in one particular hymn he is outrightly claimed to be both the creator and destroyer of the world, like Yahweh. In the work, Tlatione and Tlacayotl, basically meaning king, in the Sahagan or Sahagan scripts, we find that it is stated of Tetzcatlipoca in various prayers, quote, "In various prayers to Tetzcatlipoca, contained in Book 6 of the Florentine Codex, it is manifest that the Tlatione, the king, ruled by divine right, that he was the surrogate of the deity, and ruled in his name." So this is the divine right of kings, which is another Yahwitian principle. On this election as ruler, the Tlatoani, or the king, is told, quote, "You are the substitute, you are the surrogate of Tlok Nahaku," or in essence Tetzcatlipoca or Yaotl. Yaotl meaning the Ya god or enemy. "You are his seat, the throne from which he rules. You are his flute, the mouth through which he speaks. He speaks within you. He makes you his lips, his jaws, his ears. He also makes you his fangs, his claws, for you are his wild beast. You are his eater of people. You are his judge." Again, like the Son of Man, or like the Mashiach, the coming sort of God King of the world, as it's stated within the Zohar and Old Testament and such. The ruler spoke for the deity, that is, gave orders for the deity, and in the name of the deity, punished those who did not obey, who were infidels, right? Tlok Nahak, or literally the Lord of the near, Lord of the close. Figuratively means the supreme Lord who is everywhere, in everything, and upon whom all depend on, right? Or so the Aztecs thought. It is one of the numerous names of Tezcatlipoca, the mirror's smoke, not smoke and mirror, who ruled the world. Who ruled the world, right? Just like Yahweh was said to rule the world, or who was going to rule the world. He was also called Yuhali, Yatal, night or wind. Again, as we saw in Psalm 18, we saw references to darkness and also to the wind. That is invisible and impalpable, right? Moyo Koyatsen, meaning capricious creator, capricious meaning extremely unpredictable, very schizophrenic, right? Of course, like Yahweh. Moninekwe, meaning tyrannical one, of course, like Yahweh. Titlak Kohan, our master, literally, we are his slaves. Again, it talks about in the New Testament and the Old Testament that we have to become slaves of God. And obviously as well, Yahweh promotes and even prescribes slavery on several occasions, and sex slavery. Tel Poktli, the youth, Te Matini, knower of people, Teki Kuhane, adorner of people. Again, Tel Poktli would mean a young warrior as well. Yaotl, the enemy, or literally the Ya god. Nekok Yaotl, the enemy of both on both sides. That is the fomenter of discord. Of course, like this cult that follow the spirit, this force of death. They also fund both sides of every war, recall, right? Moke ke Ulua, the mocker, Pal Nemoani, giver of life, and Teo Koyani, creator of man, among others. His was the power to bestow riches and honour and snatch them away at a whim. As one text states, he thinks as he pleases, does as he pleases. He mocks us as he wishes, so he wills. He puts us in the palm of his hand. He rolls us about like pebbles we spin and bounce. He flings us this way and that. We make him laugh. He laughs at us. That is exactly a perfect description of Yahweh, right? A schizophrenic deity, demon. This was the deity for whom the Tlatoani acted as surrogate, again like the Mashiach, right? The Tlatoani is the king, recall. Again, capricious, arbitrary, willful, a friend or enemy depending on his whim, somewhat sadistic. He rolled people around in the palm of his hand like pebbles and laughed at their helplessness. He was, in short, a despot, right? Like Yahweh. A succinct definition of Yahweh, of course, as I have mentioned in previous sections of this work and my videos on the subject.